So this is Design Demons, aka lies that every designer tells themselves and how to conquer them. So really quick, just a quick about me. My name is Ashley Carter and I'm a user experience designer at Deloitte Digital. Over the course of my career, I have worked as a print designer, a branding designer, a web designer, a front-end developer for a pretty brief sprint, and now I'm a user experience designer. I've been at Deloitte Digital for about a year and a half now, and it's been really fun. It's been a really amazing experience. Feel free to follow me on Dribbble or Twitter at Ashcar, just my little shameless plug in there first. And I won't get too much into talking about myself right away because there will be plenty of that during this talk. The main goal is basically to discuss certain insecurities that I think most people, particularly people in the creative industry, face on a regular basis. And I wanted to give a name to those insecurities and kind of offer some advice, at least based on the things that I've been through in my career, about like how to overcome them. So I've only really been a professional designer since about 2010 when I got my first job as a design internship in Washington, D.C. So I hardly consider myself some sort of seasoned expert, but I hope you can at least come away with some ways you can kind of combat these design demons that you may have faced. So, first things first, what is a design demon? A design demon is a false statement made by creatives with a careless intent to self-handicap. Basically what that means, and I really want to focus on the term careless intent for a second, a design demon is like a nickname for something that you may tell yourself that may consciously or otherwise hold you back from really like achieving your potential. It's basically when you look at where you are in your career, especially if you're just starting out, especially if you're a beginner, and you look to other people as inspiration, but you look to them as like this podium, they're like on this podium of success. And it's when you compare where you are to where maybe they are, and then you start to hold yourself to not just a high standard, but almost an impossible standard. And there's obviously nothing wrong with holding yourself to a high standard, because that's how we all get better. We all look at inspiration and we're like, I want to be like that, or I want to emulate something like that, and that's how you get better, is working towards those goals. But there's a difference between holding yourself to a high standard and holding yourself to a high standard. So, the first design demon is I will never be at that level. I think one of the things that's really unique about the creative industry and might not be so apparent in other industries is the literal stupid amount of resources that we have at our fingertips at any given moment. There's movies, museums, there's nature, there's posters, there's artwork everywhere. So there's inspiration all around us. But the internet has both blessed and cursed us because of the amounts of resources at our fingertips at all times. And when you look at these things like Dribbble or Tumblr or other people's websites, Behance, things like that, it can be overwhelming and sometimes even really discouraging to our own perception of success. So just quickly kind of diving into some of the things that I've been through. In 2007, I was a sophomore at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and I was studying fine art and art history. As an elective for the art portion of my major, I decided to take an elective course that was called digital imaging, which is basically a fancy term for intro to Photoshop and Illustrator. And I had known for a really long time that I wanted to be some sort of artist. I wanted to use my creative instincts on a daily basis. But to be honest, when I was in school and studying more of like, I guess the traditional fine arts, like drawing and painting, I knew I wasn't the best painter or illustrator, and I was honestly okay with that. But I just really liked being creative and wanted something that could utilize that visual creativity within me as a career, like some way to pay the bills. So when I took this class, I fell in love immediately. Like I was blown away by all of the capabilities of Photoshop and Illustrator and how I can translate like maybe some of the shortcomings from my fine art techniques into something digital. And it was almost as if graphic design was this totally new, totally untouched aspect of my life. I was always vaguely aware of things like watching advertisements on TV, like what was good and what was bad, what's an ugly logo versus a really nice logo. But it never occurred to me that I could do this for a living. So when I found it, I was like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. I'm gonna do this. Unfortunately, GW didn't have any sort of graphic design major or minor or discipline or anything like that. They basically had 2 digital design classes. So I was kind of on my own when it came to learning, and so I turned to the internet. Started learning the basics, which are very similar to the basics that you learn in fine art. And I was really excited about that because I felt that it was coming really easy to me. I was like, this is awesome. Like, not only is this something that I can, make a living career out of, but it's something that's, coming really naturally to me. So I felt like, yeah, I'm like ahead of the curve. That's awesome. Basically what I did after that was I really got into typography, and I was obsessed. And I would see all of these resources all over the internet with these really amazing typographic posters and hand lettering projects, and I was like, I want to do that. So then I discovered a couple people trying to kill my career before it even started. So the problem was here I am with literally a semester's worth of experience with these design programs like Illustrator and Photoshop, comparing myself to designers like Jessica Hish and David Carson, people with years of professional experience. So what I did was I tried to emulate their work, and I failed a lot. Failed miserably. And yeah, I got some positive feedback here and there, and a ton of constructive criticism, like really good stuff, but it also kind of hammers down on you after a while. But I still felt that no matter how much I tried, I wasn't getting any closer to closing that gap between me as a beginner and these guys as seasoned professionals. I just felt like I wasn't getting any closer. And the fact of the matter is, even though I felt that I had some sort of natural talent with this, because I've always tried to be kind of an artistic, creative person my entire life, no amount of natural talent is going to replace experience. That's just how it is. And it sucks, but it's true. So I did what a lot of people unfortunately do in these types of situations, and I gave up. I looked at these things, I tried to emulate it, it never really worked out, so I kind of threw in the towel. I let this, I will never be at that level demon, tell me that I'll never be good as these amazing, award-winning designers. So I gave up. But honestly, and obviously being here in front of you, my story doesn't end there. Even though I never became that like kick-ass hand letterer or typographer or anything like that, there were other talents that began to emerge within me, and I kept going. So in this instance, I've learned some things that have helped me like exercise these demons. And I literally mean exercise like working out, because this presentation is all silly illustrations and shitty puns, so brace yourselves. Oh, and did I mention that all of the exercises are actually named after Rihanna songs, so you're welcome. This is going to be the best. So, exercise number 1, question existing. That song is from Good Girl Gone Bad, in case you missed it. It's very good. Listen to it. One of the first things I do when I'm encountered by this particular demon, because it still happens within me even today, is whenever I kind of feel like I look at someone's work and I feel like I'll never be at that level, I begin to question my reasons for wanting to be in this industry at all. Because if you truly believe like you'll never be at a certain level, why try at all? And the answer is, frankly, because I love this industry. And the thing about being a creative person is that there's always this kind of undulating balance between security and insecurity. You're secure in, you know what you want to do. You know you want to be a designer or a developer or anything, in that realm, but you're insecure as to whether or not you've got it. Like you've got that spark, or you've got the talent, or anything like that. So it's always like a shift in balance. And another problem with design is that it's so subjective. To different tastes, different trends that are happening right now. It's really hard, there's no like real definitive way to truly measure at what level you're at. So, for example, like if you're a singer, you can record yourself singing, you can hear when you're off key, or maybe you didn't control your breathing right, and you can kind of, measure those, and then when you record it again, you can start to address some of those problems. And then when you, kind of replay it to yourself, you can kind of like record yourself and actually see where you're progressing. But with design, it's a lot harder, because whether or not you have created something that you think is awful or amazing, there's always someone who's going to tell you otherwise. So you might think something that you think is shit, but you could hear a lot of feedback that's like, oh my God, that is amazing. Like, how did you do that? I love it. And you're like, well, I think it sucks. But okay, that's great. But you could also spend a ton of time working on something that you think is amazing, like the best stuff you've ever done. And the only feedback you hear is, this needs a lot of work. And that sucks, because design is hard, and creative problem solving is really hard. And it's even more difficult to determine at what level you are exactly. But the key is remembering why you got into it in the first place. So, for questioning your existence, essentially, in this field, what made you get into this industry in the first place? Maybe you love the fact that you can essentially work anywhere. If you're a designer or a developer, like, you can get a remote job and you can travel the world and like, work anywhere. Maybe you love creative problem solving, like that kind of challenge just fuels you. Maybe it's the fact that you can kind of wear different hats depending on where you work. I know for me, I was hired at a place where I was hired as a designer, but 3 weeks later I was a front-end developer, and I kind of got to jump around those things for a few months, and that was great. I love that about this field. So essentially, what do you love about this industry? Make a list, then make it again, and just remember why you love to do this, and sometimes that could be enough to fuel you forward, to keep you moving forward. So you basically hop back on your inspiration train and let that guide you. And I know this kind of sounds like really vague advice right now, but we'll delve into it a little bit deeper with this next one. So there's my little thing. She's got like little empty pockets because she feels like she has nothing to contribute. So I told you about my journey kind of in 2007 when I really started getting into this, and I'll fast forward now to 2013. I had just moved back to Denver after having hopped around a number of jobs in a couple of different states. I was in DC, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, the worst place on earth, but I won't get in on that. I got my first job as an actual web designer at a small startup in downtown Denver. I went from a junior designer to a senior designer in 3 months, so that felt great. I left that job for another job that I mentioned where I went from a designer to a front-end developer in 3 weeks. So needless to say, I kind of was full of myself at that point. I kind of had a big head. I'm like, all these great things are happening to me, so I must be doing something right. I kick ass. That's great. Even though ultimately those jobs didn't make me happy and I left them for other opportunities, I felt really great how fast my career was progressing. But then I got hired at Deloitte Digital, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm getting recognized. Like, this is awesome. Life is awesome. But then I spent my first month there, and pretty much all of the confidence that I had garnered over the past couple of years had essentially deflated into nothing. The irony of this slide is, of course, I couldn't think of particular questions that were trying to kill my career, which is ironic because I couldn't contribute to a slide about feeling that I have nothing to contribute. But anyway, to those of you that know me, that like really know me, it might surprise you to hear that I am an inherently shy person. Once you get to know me, like you can't get me to shut up. There are a couple of people in here that can testify to that. But if you throw me in a new environment, surrounded by strangers, it can be like pulling teeth to get me to open up. That's just the fact. And that's exactly what happened. At Deloitte Digital is a really prestigious place. A lot of applicants, not a lot of people actually get the job, but I did, and that was great. But my shyness, coupled with being surrounded by people who have been in the industry way longer than I have. These are like, some of these people are like A-list designers, like they're amazing. So being around people that I felt knew so much more than I did, coupled with my inherent shyness, I pretty much shut down. So like every meeting, every brainstorming session, every team mashup, I barely spoke a word. And it stayed that way for a really long time, like for months. I felt like no one knew who I was. No one would even know what my voice sounded like if they heard me like behind a screen or something, because I never talked. Because I felt like I truly had nothing to contribute. It felt like I was on the very bottom of a learning curve that everyone had already, shot to the top to, and it just stayed there, and I was like way behind. So, how do you combat this juggernaut of a feeling? Rihanna quote number 2, find love in a hopeless place. In my personal experience, the best way, or at least the way that's worked best for me, is to surround yourself with people who know exactly what you're going through. And in that, I mentioned before, the design community is amazing, but Denver is special. There's so many meetups and panels and presentations and all sorts of things that you can go to and start to talk to some of these people about what you're going through, and I guarantee every single one of them will have some sort of story that's relatable to yours. If you say, like for me, if I had gone in and said, I just got hired and everyone there is so talented, I don't have anything to contribute, I guarantee like everyone would be like, yeah, I felt like that before, everyone has. So I listed a couple of resources because essentially finding love in a hopeless place means surrounding yourself with people that get you and that can help you kind of, you know, climb out of that hole, but also a couple of learning resources because, yeah, basically continuing to learn is one of the best ways to start, I guess, feeling that you do have something to contribute. I'm going to shout out really quick the Denver Dev Slack channel created by the amazing Dan Hannigan. Is probably one of the most useful resources that I've discovered while living here. There's so many channels from programming languages, design, there's help channels, you can even find a job there, like it's amazing. And again, another way to help you come out of this I have nothing to contribute black hole is to keep learning. Learning obviously supplements your knowledge so you actually do have something to contribute to the conversation, but it also forces you to ask questions, which is ultimately the best way to contribute at all because it shows that you're really engaged and you actually care about what you're learning about and what other people are talking about. So, all right, now we are on to the final demon, like the big one, the one that kind of culminates with I have nothing to contribute and like sorry, I'm stuttering a little. Both the two first demons that come together, this kind of all culminates into one large demon, like the one that haunts your dreams and shit, because it sucks. And that is, I am not creative enough. So I said at the very beginning that this is my third year at Develop Denver, which means I have been racking my brain, just trying to think of a topic, because I said I wanted to speak ever since I first started coming to this conference. So I've been racking my brain for years trying to think of a topic to speak about. And it's hard enough to find a topic to talk about alone, but if there's one thing I've spent more time thinking about than the actual topic, it's if people would give a damn at all what I had to say. Would this be valuable? Is it meaningful? Will they like it? Will it be good enough? Am I good enough? Like, what the hell am I doing standing up here right now? And the truth is, I'm only half sure why I'm standing up here right now. Again, I haven't been a designer that long, so I don't consider myself some sort of seasoned expert. I don't have all the answers. This is just what I've been through in my career. And I still consider myself very young in my career. So I feel like I'm asking myself these questions like, will it be good enough? Will people like it? Stuff like that, more often than not. But I can guarantee you that there are veterans in this industry who have maybe been in it for 10, 15, 20 years, who have also asked themselves this question recently. It's not just something that beginners go through, it's something that everyone at every level goes through. So, this is my most embarrassing slide, because this is work that I have done in the past, and it's crappy. On the left is one of the first, I know it's kind of hard to see here, but I'm going to put my slides up on Dropbox, by the way, if you guys want to take a closer look, because I know it's kind of hard to see, but on the left is one of the first attempts I ever made into designing something for the web, and this was when skeuomorphic design still kind of ruled the web, which was really hard for some reason for me to emulate. And then on the right is one of the first attempts I made into mobile web design. And they're both bad. Maybe they're not the worst thing ever created, but they're bad. Especially to my high-ass expectations, they're super bad. But I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. I had all of these inspirational resources and all these things to draw from, and I was like, I thought I was doing everything right, but in the end, it just always looked bad to me, and I didn't know why. I just always felt like I missed the mark, which was a very familiar feeling. But the difference between these bad attempts and the bad attempts that I made into like hand lettering typography is that I didn't give up. Even though I could look at these and recognize that they were bad, I knew I could do better. yeah, I knew I could do better, but there's only one way to get better. And if you're following along with the Rihanna song quotes, you know exactly what is coming next. Work. You knew this was coming. So Ira Glass, he gave a very similar talk about this very subject on This American Life. And this is what he said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. We all go through this, and if you're just starting out, or if you're still in this phase, you gotta know that it's normal, and the most important thing you can do is a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you'll finish a story. And it's only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And it's gonna take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just gotta fight your way through it. And honestly, when I heard that, that was some of the best advice that I've ever heard. So, challenge yourself to make something and make it often. Just make a lot of stuff, make it often. Make something every day or every week or every month. I don't care how you do it, just challenge yourself to get it done. There are tons of different exercises that you can do if you don't have a particular project in mind. For example, if you are a UX designer or maybe you're trying to get into UX design, do a heuristic evaluation. And a heuristic evaluation is essentially go to a website or app that maybe you use frequently but you think has a really poor experience. For example, most airline companies have really bad web experiences. So kind of go through that process and start to identify pain points, places where maybe the interaction doesn't make sense, maybe the navigation is in a weird spot and you can't really find what you're looking for, and start kind of making those notes, putting them together in a presentation so you can prove to someone that, like, look, I know how to think as a UX designer because I put this evaluation together. Because one of the things that was told to me when I first got hired at Deloitte Digital, especially after seeing like this sea of talented people that I'm going to be working with, was asking, why did you hire me? Like, I know my portfolio might not have been at the same level as others that are working there, but someone told me that it's because I could demonstrate that I could think like one. And that's the most important part of user experience design, is proving that you can think like one. And a heuristic evaluation is a really good way of demonstrating that. If you're a UI designer, I suggest that you redesign something. Maybe it's something like, for example, the crappy website that I showed earlier. Like, maybe you kind of take some of your old work and you start to rework it based on what you know now, just redesign it. Or another good exercise is if you're on Dribbble, whether or not you have an account where you can post things or not, there's obviously a ton of amazing design work being put out there every day. You could find something on Dribbble and rebound it. That's something, if you're not familiar with Dribbble, you can basically look at someone's work and a rebound is like, hey, I redesigned this, or I thought about this a little bit differently, here's what I did, something like that. That's a really good exercise. If you're a developer, you could do the same thing. You could go on Dribbble and find some UI that maybe you think you'd be interested in coding. You can take that similar like rebound aspect maybe into CodePen. You can see what other people have done and see like, okay, well, what if I reworked this, and what if I did this my own way, and then like share it with them, because I'm sure people would love to see that not only are you looking at their work, but you're engaging with it. That's awesome. The whole point of this is to set a hard deadline and actually do it. So one of my coworkers at Deloitte Digital, whom I now consider a local hero for doing this, decided to issue a challenge to our creative team, and that is literally called make something every day. Make a thing every day. So I started doing it. I started making something every day. And I know, well, not every day, because it's hard to literally make something every day, but this challenge has helped me so much when it comes to my self-confidence as a designer. I'm working faster, I'm producing higher quality work than I think I ever have in my entire career. And I encourage all of you to take part in something like this, but even more importantly, like find a team, find a group that will do this with you, because as amazing as it feels to make something every day, and I can like maybe put it up on my portfolio or something and say that I did this, and that pride that comes with it is amazing, but doing it with a group, like we have our own Slack channel at work where everyone posts the stuff that they make every day, and it's amazing, like having that community around it, that will inspire you in whatever prompt you're working on for that day. But it'll also motivate you because they kind of will keep tabs on you, like, hey, you haven't made anything in like 2 weeks, what's up with that? So it'll motivate you far more than maybe going at it alone. So again, work fast and work often and share it. Like, plug the living shit out of yourself. That's awesome. Just be shameless and like have fun with it. So, in conclusion, cheers to drink to that, another Rihanna song. Yeah. I'll leave you with these 2 quotes. I already said the one by Ira Glass, but I think it's definitely worth repeating because it's been so impactful to me. Because it's only by actually going through a volume of work that you're going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. The only way to bridge that gap where you are and where you perceive success to be is to produce a high volume of work. Don't let this gap elude you. Build the fucking bridge. Go for it. The last quote is by David Airy, the author of various design-related books, including, this one is from Work for Money, Design for Love. And he says, being a designer, designers are lucky. We get to learn for a living. And that's one of the things that I really love about this industry is that we're constantly learning that. So learn to embrace it and actually have fun with it. I went there. I did the one more thing. I did it. All right, so I'm going to issue my own challenge to you. Being at Develop Denver is awesome with all the speakers and the talks and the people. It's hard to leave here and not feel super inspired to make something. So I am challenging everyone here, if you are so inclined, to make your own thing. And it can be anything. It can be a sketch, a wireframe, an interface design, a code snippet, whatever. It doesn't have to be the most perfect specimen. It doesn't have to be this super polished thing that you spent weeks on. Like, just make something today or over the weekend while you're kind of reflecting on everything that you've learned in these past 2 days. Just make something. I don't have a definitive prompt for you because one of the things that we do at work is every single day we get a particular prompt. Some of the prompts have been trees and robots. Some of them have been like UI exercises, like a login screen or a chat bot, something like that. But I think Develop Denver is a pretty suitable choice. Maybe you redesign the logo, or maybe you design a new t-shirt for Develop Denver. Maybe you design a beer label because that's basically all we've been drinking for the past 2 days. And yeah, like maybe you're inspired by something from the virtual reality demo that's happening at Code, or it's the Balmer Peak Challenge. I don't know what it is right now. I know that's happening, but whatever the challenge is, like maybe that inspires you. User input, it's awesome. That's a great like UI challenge or developer challenge. But whatever it is, make it, and then I encourage you to share it. I have the hashtag actually let me go back one. I have the hashtag #DevelopDenverDesign, which was unused on Twitter, because I'd love to see it. If you guys make anything, and I'm sure if you guys make anything, you would love to see what other people are making. So if you do make something, take a quick screenshot or take a picture of it or anything, and like post it to this hashtag because I would love to see it. So make it, share it, and shine bright like the beautiful diamond you are. My last Rihanna quote. So thank you to everyone for giving me this time and letting me share with with you today. Also special thanks to Rihanna for being fucking Rihanna, so I can use her quotes. And thank you. Woo. And I kept my original promise and kept this super short. That was like 30 minutes. Anyway, so yeah, I wanted to intentionally keep this short because, like I said before, if you guys want to go and like drink beer or whatever, hang out, or if you guys kind of want to use this time to maybe brainstorm amongst yourself about like stuff that you might want to make, or if you just want to ask questions, we have plenty of time for it. So, any questions? Yes.
I like your point about really being regular with it, because I have read articles about perfectionism and how to get over that hurdle, and it's by building up too much that's going to be this great thing. And if you require yourself to even do 15 minutes of it every day, you just learn that you're sloppy, and you'll find some things, like the muscle memory just gets going.
Yes, that's something that I've really found with this like make a thing everyday challenge is maybe depending on how the day looks, maybe I'll only allot an hour or two to working on something. And when I'm approaching that deadline, like you only have 30 minutes left, do you really need to keep reworking like the adjustment of something? Like, no, I don't have time for that. I just need to make something and I need to get it out there. And again, I think the best thing about sharing this in front of a group is that the feedback is almost always positive. Like, people are usually just happy that you have contributed to this kind of challenge, and that can be super inspiring to keep making work because you're constantly being told like, hey man, that's awesome. Or if you post something that you're not exactly proud of, like, you're in a room of like-minded people and they can kind of give you feedback on that and figure out how you can get better. So yeah, working within like even a really tight deadline does wonders for like some of the work you're making. Anybody else? Yes.
How many times have you done this talk again?
Once? What? Right now? This is the first time.
You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes.
What's your Rihanna song?
That's a hard-hitting question. That's the question I'm worried about. Oh my god. I really like her recent album. I like Consideration. That's a good song. Yeah. There was one more. Yes? Oh.
I have the same question actually.
Oh, awesome. Well, Consideration from Anti. It's fantastic. Yes.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I love seeing the word demon written in that font. It's really
Thank you. When I was going through this, like, my original idea was just like making these little demons, like just in sad positions, as you guys saw. And I was like, well, what font do I use for that? Because this is way too light and airy and cutesy to apply any sort of like scary font. So I was like, let's go for like the big bubble font. It's gonna be awesome. So I was happy about that. Yes.
Do you have any Rihanna
I don't, and that was another thing that I considered, was making these little guys look more like Rihanna. But this is gonna sound super cheesy, and I apologize. I designed these to kind of look like me, like with the big floofy hair and stuff like that, because, geez, your biggest design demon is yourself. Yeah.
Speaking of self, I had great advice once that was, at any point in our lives, we genuinely are trying to do the best we can with what we have. And so when we're here now, it's really not fair to judge ourselves of how we were designing or building or handling our relationships. Even 6 months ago, let alone like when we started our careers, and just realizing at that time that was the best, and look how far I've come. And seeing the difference is the benefit, not necessarily what that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like what I was saying earlier about how I wanted to be this super awesome like typography and hand lettering expert, I beat myself so much over it about like how everything I was making was really crappy that I eventually gave up, because there's two things that you can do when you're beating yourself up. You either get tired of it and you do something about it, or you get tired of it and you leave. And I did the latter for that, unfortunately. But when I started getting into more like interface design, I loved it so much that no matter how much I beat myself up, I knew I couldn't leave. I'm like, I'm stuck here. I'm married to this forever. So it was about turning all of these like negatives into something that would actually fuel me to keep going. And I think, especially with like this Make a Thing challenge, I think it's been really helpful because you don't have time to beat yourself up. You just have to make something, and it's amazing how much you can improve doing something like this in a short amount of time. And so now, like, I can look back on my old work and be like, yeah, that sucked, but look what I'm doing now. It's great, and it's gonna get better. So, yeah. Anybody else? Oh, another thing is, again, I'd love to hear your stories. I don't know what level everyone is at right now. I don't know if you guys are like beginners trying to get into the industry, or maybe you've been in it for a while, but I personally love to hear other people's stories about how they got to where they are. So feel free to reach out to me like on Twitter or email or anything like that, because I'd love to hear it. And if I can offer if I can impart any sort of wisdom or anything like that, that would be cool too. So get at me. Yeah. Sweet. That was real short. Thank you.